Hello, guys. Here, back again with another episode of Penny for My Thoughts. So, I just want to come here, a different setting, a little dark, but I can still deliver. Talk about encouragement and, believing in yourself. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes even sometimes the smallest thing can just have you stressed out and out of whack and not believing in yourself. So I want to talk about that today. We're all people, and all of us are trying to achieve something. Well, the majority of us are trying to achieve something. And just naturally, you have, insecurities and things like that. And, when you're already a person that's a worrier, I would know because I have anxiety and I worry about things and I overthink about things and, just defeat myself. But what helps me sometimes is just encouraging myself and being as purposeful as I can about it. And but it's hard sometimes. It just it's hard. It's hard for people that when they have a vision and they have a thought and they feel like it's not conveyed to other people, and then it makes you discouraged and makes you you know it feel hard to encourage yourself. And like I say, I go through that all the time. But sometimes I have to tell myself of you have to encourage yourself. You got to know what your vision is and stick to it, and just tell yourself, I'm not going to procrastinate this time, or I'm not going to allow this to bother me, or whichever. But I go through it too. Just the other day, just trying to convey what I want to do and convey what my vision is to, you know, people or whichever that are trying to help, that say they want to help you, but there's a miscommunication. And just me going through that, I just got discouraged and like, okay, well, maybe what I want to do is not what I need to do. And I had to tell myself, like, this is, you've wasted so much time, in life of things that you wanted to do because, you didn't either encourage yourself or you were looking for validation from others to encourage you. And yes, encouragement from others, is fine and it helps, but sometimes like you can't put so much value on it, so much weight on it, because it'll mess with you psychologically. And then you're just like, okay, well, nobody understands what I want to do or what I'm trying to do or the goal or whichever. And so since they're not encouraging me, then maybe I should just say forget it. And that is when you start to get discouraged, and you start to get stressed and everything else, and like, okay, you know I just don't believe in myself right now. And sometimes it's hard to get out of that for some people, and even for me it's hard to get out of that. But I said to myself, look, I've wasted enough time not believing in myself. You get to a point where you just like, I you got to be delusional. Like, I'm tired of not believing in myself, period. So either I'm going take this one little discouragement and allow it to just create a whole situation, or if I'm going to just take it and just say, okay, still got to encourage myself, not to overthink things, and, you know, not to seek so much validation from others. And me personally, I've had to learn that, not seek so much validation of feeling like, only way I can encourage myself if others encouraging me, or only way I can, be of value if somebody else sees me as of value. I have to learn that. I've had to learn that, and I still got to remind myself and still learn that. And, I know that's hard for a lot of people because we're all human. Like, there you have goals and dreams sometime, and sometimes you got to put them on a back burner. Sometimes, you keep yourself away from doing it because you just don't believe in yourself. And I got to the point where I was just like, I'm just tired of not believing in myself, of certain things. I'm tired of putting so much weight in validation from others. You know, Maybe a little validation is helpful, a little encouragement is helpful from others, but 100%, I don't know that that's good for you. You know, Validation helps. I'm pretty sure there's companies, there's, whichever creators or whatever, and they, okay, hey, I'm gonna put out this idea. We'll see how it do. And then, of the weight of whatever the validation they have or whatever the encouragement they have, then that's like, okay, well, we'll go with that. But there's a lot of times where there's a lot of people that just put out whatever and there's nobody believed in them. Nobody encouraged them or anything. And they just went ahead and said, hey, I'm believing myself. I'm going to put most of the value of belief and the encouragement in myself. And whatever happens, happens. And there has been a lot of things that just ideas and companies and whatever that has worked just from that. And that proves that, you know, 100% of the validation and the encouragement shouldn't go on others. Not 100%. Not 100%, because that type of stuff can discourage you. And, there's a lot of companies or whichever, or just things, period, or content, or just in all categories that we would have never gotten if the person that produced it, or music or whatever that produced it was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go off of what everybody else in the room say. I'm just gonna go off of others may not like it, or they don't like it, or this person that this group of people don't agree with it, so now I'm just not going to do it. That is, there will be a lot of just things, us as people, as consumers of whatever music, products, whatever, we would have never even had, or any ideas or anything, if everybody, if we was, if the person that decided to do it or put it out there was so fully on the encouragement of others. Sometimes in certain situations, you got to be the only one that encourage yourself. And that's why I say the value of the encouragement, most of the time when it comes from you encouraging yourself, be majority of the time 100% authentic. Because a lot of sometimes you had to work for that encouragement. Sometimes you had to pull yourself out of whatever, the darkness, the hole, the whichever, and say, you know what, I'm going to encourage myself. That is 100% authentic, when you had to work for that encouragement sometimes. And yes, you a lot of times sometimes encouragement from others is not real encouragement. It's backhanded encouragement. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but sometimes that happens. And it can be anybody, strangers, people that's hating on you, your family, your friends, sometimes that really don't believe in you, and they're like, okay, yeah, I'll give you encouragement. Or, on the flip side, you know, certain times, they really don't believe in you, so they just encouraging you. Or there's times that there's some evil people that will just be like, you know what, I know this is a bad idea, it's not good, but I'm gonna encourage them to do it just so they can fail, just so I can watch them fail. Not saying that happens, that's everybody, but those things happen. It's evil and it's wrong, but it happens. And so, that's why when you got to do some soul searching and be like, okay, well, do I really want to, let me check in with myself first and foremost. Yes, I get the encouragement from, whoever, whichever, but let me check in with myself too. Because, and I truly feel like, the encouragement that you give yourself is the most authentic. And I don't even feel bad saying it is, because just like I said, a lot of times you had to work for that encouragement. There's times where, there's people that just feel like they are good at nothing in life. They're nothing. All they've ever heard from people, they're nothing. All they've ever felt is they're nothing. And one day they're just like, you know what? I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to unbury myself out of the dirt. I'm gonna have to unbury myself out of whatever and encourage myself in whatever. It doesn't matter what everybody else say. And that's the authentic, because sometimes some of those people, they flourish just because they put more value in their own encouragement than others. And I speak about this because everything I say I've went through. I tell myself this 5 times before I tell it one time to anybody else. And I'm a human being. I have anxiety. I still have to work on encouraging myself all the time. Sometimes I sabotage my own self. Be like, well, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. And then I gotta pull out that encouragement person and be like, you know what? Why not? Why not? Why can't I have it? Why can't I do it? You know, even if you have ideas and and you convey it to other people and they don't agree with it, and you're like, well, I think that's a good idea. Why should I, worry about what they're saying? Sometimes that's the best thing. It really is. And but I know sometimes it's just hard to encourage yourself. It is. It's hard to encourage yourself, or sometimes other people are encouraging you, but it's hard for you to encourage yourself. That's why I say the value of encouragement sometimes is mostly on you. You can, because like I say, on the flip side, you could be in a room full of people that really encourage you, but you feel like you're not good enough. So you won't even attempt it. You won't even attempt to do it because you have checked in with yourself and saying, okay, well, even though everybody else is telling me this and telling me I should do this, I don't feel like I'm good enough. So the weight in that case, the weight of their encouragement, you still got to check in with you. You can encourage yourself for 5 minutes, and the next hour you're like, you know what, I don't know. I don't know. Like, that's that back and forth. I would know. I would know. Like I say, I got anxiety. Sometimes I overthink things. I can encourage myself and say, hey, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to this and that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if and then you just go back and forth with yourself sometimes. But once you get it, you get it. And, the weight of it is far more better. I mean, and I'm not saying, don't ask for other people's opinion. Don't take other people's encouragement as nothing. But you do got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. You do. Because, like I said, the weight really weighs more on you. And it's more authentic. You know what you went through in emotionally and in your mind. You know what you went through to get to that point. You know the days that you had to have faith and encourage yourself. It may have took you 10 years to do something that you should have did 5 years ago. Because the weight of the encouragement really in that situation relied on you. And even for self-esteem, basically is encouraged, even if you have a low self-esteem. And honestly, who has a perfect self-esteem? That's why they call it a high self-esteem and low self-esteem. They didn't say it's a perfect self-esteem, because what's perfect? There's nothing that's perfect. Even the people that that have like the highest confidence, they have some type of thing where some low self in some category, whether it be looks, whether it be what they do, or how they do it, or whichever. And even the most confident people that you think is super confident, they have to encourage themselves. And you know, then there's also, people that they haven't really grown into, the encouragement themselves. There are people out there that just strictly won't do anything unless they have validation from others, validation from the world, you know, and this is all ages, not just like, I know we can say, okay, teenagers and kids, but there are adults, older people that some they just cannot like everything they do have to be based on the encouragement of others, based on the validation of other people. And and some just can't get out of it. Some literally just can't encourage themselves. Like, they go solely on, what the validation of others is. And if the validation of others or the encouragement from others say otherwise, then they're just like, okay, well, you should not do that, because it's like, you know, it's self-esteem, it's self-encouragement. You spend time with yourself before you spend time with other people. When you wake up, they're not, they're not there with you. I mean, unless, it's, somebody you sleep with or whatever, but you're not with them 24/7. Even if you live with them, or your spouse or your significant other, you sleep in the same bed together, but you're not there 24/7. They leave the house, you leave the house, you go to the bathroom, so it still weighs on you. You are you. You are your inside and you are your outside. You have your own mind, you have your own heart, you have your own body. You are an individual. God made you an individual. So you do have to check in with yourself. Whether the encouragement is good from others or whether it's bad from others, you still have to check in with yourself. And and sometimes you just got to grow from things. I used to be one of those persons that have to, what would other people think, or maybe this is something I'm not good with because other people don't recognize it, or I wrote this and no one said anything about it, so maybe it's not good, or I put this type of information out and no one really sees it, and or okay, I get this in this category, my family and friends said I'm good at this or whichever, so I'm just going to go with that. My personal self had to grow from that, and I still got some growing up to do. I do, because like I say, I got anxiety, and I go back and forth with myself. Sometimes I can get indecisive and everything else because I am human, and I'm the type of person I don't mind. I don't mind expressing my flaws. I will lay them all out on the table because my flaws is what made me. I learned from every last one of them, and so I'm not even saying, okay, it's you're a bad person because you that need validation or encouragement from others. We are human. We do want validation. It makes us feel good. It makes us want to push on. It makes us want to work harder. It makes us want to, okay, well, this idea, I'm getting encouraged by family or friends or outside people. So I want to push harder on that. But then, as being a human, somebody don't like, this or that. And you're like, well, I'm not even gonna, it doesn't get good feedback. I'm not getting it encouraged in as much in this category as I'm getting encouraged in much as this category. So I'm just gonna just focus on one thing. And as human beings, a lot of us do that. Not saying it's right, but it happens because we're human. And you still got to check in with yourself. You do. You got to encourage yourself. And even with confidence and high self-esteem, one day you can be like, okay, well, I'm very encouraged, I'm very motivated and everything else. Then the next day, you're just like, I'm just not encouraged to say nothing, do nothing, or think anything. And that's you just being a human being. Nobody can be 100%, you know, happy go lucky and whatever 100% of the time. You got to check in with yourself. Sometimes you got to grow through things. It's like a process. It doesn't matter how old you are. But, you know, in these scenarios, I'm saying it's just different things. I'm a human being. And I can relate to every little thing that I'm saying, every last one of them. Because, and I gotta say, I can come on here and say, you know, this or that, but I still struggle with this myself every day, all the time. I have to be purposeful in encouraging myself. Literally, I have to push myself sometimes to encourage myself. Be like, okay, Vanessa, you know, you gotta, you know, encourage yourself today. Don't allow. Just the other day, I had to encourage myself. You know, I come on here and, you know, you know, I get advice from others and just trying to be the best content creator I am and creative I am and everything else. And, you know, I'm speaking to a person that's supposed to help me and guide me, and they, you know, don't understand what my vision is. And like I said, you know, it made me discouraged. I'm just like, I just was so discouraged that day. And I was like, okay, you know, you're going to have to pull yourself. Remember, you know, you check in with yourself. They may not see it. And I say this, everybody will not understand your vision. Everybody will not understand where you're coming from. They won't. But as long as God does, that's all that matters. I put God ahead of it. I pray about it every time. You know, I say, God, just lead me. God, help me to encourage myself today. And even when and I'm like, God, even when I don't feel like I'm encouraging myself, this is just my off day today. This is just my off day, and I'm just gonna pick myself back up tomorrow, the next hour, the next 2 days, whichever. And sometimes it's just what you gotta do. Some can't do that. And I'm not even saying that they're bad. They just might have to grow a little bit more. And I'm not even saying when we talk about age, it could be a 60-year-old that has to grow. Age is not just growth. Your mind is growth, your spirit is growth, your perspective has to grow. Everything got to grow. So we won't even talk about age, because I feel like a lot of times people say, "Oh, with age you have growth." Not all the time. You know, there are people that are, you know, they could be 70, 80, whichever, and they don't know how to encourage themselves because you know, they still have some growth to do. I don't feel like growth stops just with age. You know, that even goes to the fact of me even saying, even with wisdom, you know, a lot of people say, you know, older people have the wisdom. No, there's some young people that have wisdom too. It's 5-year-olds that has wisdom, that literally a 5-year-old can tell, you know, a 50-year-old. I've seen it. I've seen videos of kids having more wisdom than their parents, and literally. So, or having to encourage them parents. You know, I don't feel like, you know, it's a box thing or a cookie cutter thing or a, you know, uh like a generic thing. Have to, you know, work at things too. You got to work at it. Yeah, work it. Encouragement of encouraging yourself builds your confidence. Yes, it does. Encouragement from others build confidence. Yes, but like I say, if you're not feeling it, then sometimes you won't even do it, because you're like, okay, you know. And again, on the flip side, even if you are feeling it and other people don't are not encouraging you, you won't do it then. So it's like, you know, I guess you could say two things can mean the same thing at the same time. It is. Or, you know, it could be a two-way street. But, you know, sometimes it's hard. It is. It's hard sometimes to encourage yourself. It is. And then when you start to go on, mental issues and stuff like that, and anxiety and depression, those make it even harder. And then, when you have those things, you got other people around you that are also feeding into, not really encouraging you, and that's when you got to work even harder. You have depression and things like that, you already feel, a certain way about yourself. That's even harder when you have to encourage yourself. And sometimes, even with that, another person that's not encouraging you can just set everything off. And like I say, that makes it even harder. Anxiety. You already feel like, I can't do this. This is too much. Like everything is just going on. I would know. I'm classic on that. Everything is just going on, and everything is just, I can't do this. I can't do that. When I say I have to push myself a lot of times to encourage myself, I do. Because I will get sucked into my anxiety, sucked into my worry. Anxiety, most top of the list is worry. Worry, and it flares up your feeling like you can't do anything, feeling like you can't do this at that time and everything else. That flares up, you feeling like you can't encourage yourself. You know, and that's when I push myself the hardest as much as I can. And sometimes, I gotta catch myself because sometimes I'll stew in it and I can't this and that and whatever. And sometimes it take me a whole day to be like, okay, you know how you was thinking yesterday. Today you need to not think like that. You just come on, just push yourself as much as you can. And sometimes I it's not easy. It really isn't. It's not easy sometimes to encourage yourself. It ain't, especially when you already have the mental issues and your mind run constantly and this and that. Me personally, there was a lot of things that I could have done earlier that I feel like I could have, but I just didn't believe in myself, didn't encourage myself, didn't know how to encourage myself, would just stew in not believing in myself. Even and there were people all around me saying, okay, you're good at this, you can do this and do that, but me, I didn't feel like I could encourage myself, so I just didn't do it. I legit, when I graduated from high school, because all throughout me from grade school to I struggled, because not only do I have anxiety, I have ADHD, and I couldn't focus. So when I graduated from high school, I was like, I just felt like I can't even go to college. I can't do it. So when I was 18 and getting out of high school, I didn't go to college. I just got a job. And I didn't go to college until I didn't sign up till like I was 22, which I can't say that's bad because a lot of people, I mean, you can go to school at any time, but my only thing was I didn't believe in myself. I thought I couldn't handle it and everything. I thought I couldn't handle it. I was like, you know what? I've already struggled enough just to get where I'm at now, and I just can't handle it. So I'm just not gonna do it. And I waited a couple years, and I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of not believing in myself. I'm gonna have to just push me. And I proved myself right because I graduated with a 3.8 grade point average, and I was on the dean's list 3 times, and I was invited to the honor society. And I learned so much about myself when I went to college, how I like to learn and everything else. Now, granted, what I went for, what I went to school for, I don't really use as much. It's not what I'm gonna make a career out of, but I wouldn't say that it was for nothing because I learned about myself. It helped me to encourage myself. Once I encouraged myself, everything changed. I was like, oh well, I could have did this earlier. I'm thinking I was gonna have bad grades, and I'm thinking I'm not going to this and that, and I graduated with a 3.8 grade for an average. So encourage yourself and think about the weight that your encouragement has and the weight that other people's encouragement has. When they say take things for a grain of salt, I believe it. Whether you're getting positive encouragement or negative encouragement from others, I don't feel like you should put it at a 100% weight, and definitely don't put it at a higher weight than yours, because you have to check in with you. But as I always say, keep your mental healthy. This is another penny for my thoughts.